You know, it's pretty wild when you think about it. How can a single, simple fall, the kind that happens to all of us, end up causing two completely different, almost perfectly opposite injuries in your forearm? It's this amazing story of anatomy and pure physics, a real tale of two fractures. So, let's dive in.
So that's the big question we're going to tackle, right? The setup seems so simple. You trip, you put your hand out to catch yourself. But somehow, depending on just the right twist or force, your body can produce these two totally distinct mirror image breaks. How on earth does that work?
All right, let's open our first case file. This one has a seriously dramatic nickname, the treacherous lesion. And trust me, it's not just for show. There's a really good reason this injury earned that kind of reputation.
This is the Monteggia fracture, and what you need to know is that it's a classic 2-for-1 injury, which is exactly what makes it so tricky. It's not just one thing going wrong, it's two at the same time. You get a break in the ulna, that's the bone on the pinky side of your arm, way up high near the elbow. And while that's happening, the head of your other forearm bone, the radius, literally pops out of the elbow joint. So you have a break and a dislocation.
So how does this happen? Well, the number one cause is exactly what we talked about, falling on an outstretched hand. But there's a key detail. It usually involves a forced pronation, which just means your palm gets twisted downward as you hit the ground. A direct hit can do it too, but that fall is the main story here.
And here it is. This is why it gets that scary name. An X-ray might scream broken ulna, and a doctor could, understandably, focus all their attention on fixing that break. But in doing so, they might completely miss the much more subtle dislocation of the radius up at the elbow. It's a classic case of one injury creating a distraction that hides another one, and that's what makes it so, well, treacherous.
Okay, so we've got our first injury down. Now let's look at its opposite number. If the first one is the Monteggia fracture, this next one is often called, you guessed it, the reverse Monteggia. The name alone tells you we're about to see the exact opposite pattern.
And boom, here it is, the Galeazzi fracture. Instead of the ulna breaking, this time it's the radius, the thumb side bone, that fractures. And it's not up by the elbow, it's way down in the lower third, near your wrist. And to complete the reversal, it's the ulna that dislocates, popping out of place right at the wrist joint. It's a perfect flip.
This slide just puts it all into perspective. I mean, look at that side by side. Monteggia, ulna breaks high, radius dislocates at the elbow. Galeazzi, radius breaks low, ulna dislocates at the wrist. They are perfect anatomical opposites, born from pretty much the same kind of fall. So cool.
So why? Why does this happen? The secret is in the incredibly unique way the radius and ulna work together. See, they aren't just two parallel sticks of bone. They have a much more complicated relationship than that. The absolute key to understanding all of this is rotation. Your whole ability to turn your palm up, which is called supination, or turn your palm down, pronation, like turning a screwdriver, that entire motion comes from your radius bone rotating around the ulna, which stays pretty much put. And that rotation is all controlled by muscles.
And this is where it gets really fascinating. You have muscles that turn your palm up, the supinators, and they attach near the top of your radius. Then you have muscles that turn your palm down, the pronators, and they attach further down the bone. So what happens when that bone breaks? Well, the muscles don't just stop pulling. They create this constant tug of war on the broken pieces, trying to twist them in opposite directions, and this is absolutely crucial when it comes to fixing it.
Speaking of the fix, because you have this whole mess going on, a break, a dislocation, and this muscle tug of war, these are not easy injuries to treat, especially in adults.
This quote about the Galeazzi fracture really says it all, a fracture of necessity. What that means is, for an adult, it is an absolute necessity to have surgery to fix it properly. You can't just slap a cast on it and cross your fingers, because those rotational forces we talked about are just too powerful.
Now, there is a big difference between grown-ups and kids here. In adults, these fractures are usually displaced, meaning the bones are way out of alignment, so surgery is almost always the answer. They have to go in, put the bone back together, and hold it there with plates and screws. But in kids, their bones heal like magic, so if the break isn't too bad, they can sometimes get away with just a well-molded cast.
But even when a cast is the right move, it's not just about keeping the bone still. It's about holding it in the perfect rotation. And this brings us right back to that muscle tug of war we were just talking about.
Check this out. This table tells the whole story. If the brake is up high, in the proximal third, the supinator muscles are pulling that top piece into a palm-up position. So to get the two ends to line up, you have to cast the entire arm in that same palm-up position. But if the brake is lower down, you have both sets of muscles pulling on that top piece, so it ends up in a neutral, kind of handshake position. And you guessed it, that's how the cast has to be set. You're just aligning the bottom half to match wherever the top half is being pulled.
So what's the big